Welcome back, Lorcana players, it's Poisonous. Today's video is a breakdown of my weekend in set champs to give you an idea of the deck that I played, the matchups that I had, and talk about some decks that you could play for your upcoming set champs this weekend. So I am happy to announce that I did take down a set champs this weekend. I got the really awesome looking playmat. I'm a big fan of the art and the design of this mat, and I think that the promo card looks really sick. So I know that there's lots of you that are still grinding. I still have a couple more set champs to play in yet this season, and I wanted to break down the deck that I played and the matchups that I had, and then we'll look at some other decks as well. As always, thanks for following. If you're new here, go ahead and exert the subscribe button and we'll go on a quest together. Drop a comment, let me know how you've been doing in your set champ so far, and if you have a deck that you are really proud of, go ahead, drop the link, share with everyone, and see if we can get some more set champs wins under the belt before the season ends and we move on to the new set. Obviously, spoiler season is already begun, card reveals have started, and the new set looks like it's going to be fun. But there's still 2 weekends of set champs left, so let's go ahead and get into the grind. So this weekend I played Blurple, which I have mixed feelings about. I have mixed feelings because I'm a long time Blurple lover. If you've been following my channel since the start, I've been playing Blurple for like 4 sets now, so it's not exactly a new thing. But I'm also typically an anti-meta player, so I try and play decks that will take down the best deck as opposed to strictly playing the best deck in the format. But I was away last week and I missed the first weekend of set champs. I wasn't sure what decks were really cleaning up in my local meta. I wasn't sure what to expect. So I thought that it would probably be best to bring a safe choice, which is a really strong deck that I have a ton of experience piloting. I haven't played with Blurple at all during Fabled. I haven't played a single game online or in person, but I have so many reps with Fabled in previous sets that I have a pretty good idea of what it takes to play with the deck and win. So this is the deck list that I played this weekend. I know that it's similar but slightly different than a lot of the most common lists right now. So I did stick with 8 1-drops. I think having a consistent 1-drop is kind of important. I know that most decks are running like 6 or 7, but I do like having the option to almost always have the 1-drop. And I think that being able to board flood once you do get some card draw, because of the lack of board wipes and everything except for like the green deck, means that you can really like spam the board and try and gain a big advantage with it. I'm running Tipo and Sail for ramp, 3 Dumbo. The only reason that I'm running 3 Dumbo is because I don't have 4 Dumbo. So you could put 4 in, but most of the time I felt like Dumbo isn't really that significant in winning the game. So I'm not saying Dumbo's bad, but like Dumbo isn't necessary. It would be how I felt. I'm running 3 copies of Elsa Gloves Off. I was experimenting with this. I saw that some lists were running her, and I think that she's good because she's pretty sturdy with a 3/4 body, but she has Challenger 3, so she can one-shot cards like the big Clarabelle. She can take out a Hades and still survive. So she seems like she's got good value that way, and she is another shift line for the Elsa Spirit of Winter, which is where I'm running 2 copies of Big Elsa when a lot of lists were only running 1. 4 copies of Genie, 3 copies of Elephant. Elephant I think is a great card, especially in the aggro matchup, so I wanted to make sure that I was still running Elephant. 4 copies of Belle, Accomplished Mystic, 4 copies of Elsa, and because I only had 3 Dumbo, I put in 1 copy of Ursula Voice Stealer. She lets you play a song for free, but more importantly, she's another option to exert an opposing character, which I think is really important. You need a lot of interaction because this meta is so driven by like challenging and combat mechanic, but having the ability to force your opponent into interacting is really strong. So I'd say that she's pretty good, but I wouldn't say that she's like, a defining card of the deck or anything. 4 copies of Hades, 2 Big Elsa, 2 of Monstro. I like Monstro for the green-blue matchup, so you could probably cut him. I don't think that he's, hugely important, but he did well for me in the Blurple mirror as well, just having another big butt that's hard to remove. 4 copies of Hypnotic Strength. This card is really great for combat mechanics, and it's really good at dealing with illusions. Most of the Blurple decks that I play were running Yago, and I'm not running Yago, so I can pick on their illusions by using Hypnotic Strength. And the next card, Magical Maneuvers. The Magical Maneuvers says return chosen character character of yours to your hand, exert chosen character. This card is another way to force interaction with your opponent, but it also allows you to bounce your characters, which can be pretty useful if you want to bounce a Hades or an Elsa and put them back in hand. It also allows you in the early game to force your opponent into exerting a character, which then like your Rafiki can take out or your Basil can quest and boost up Tipo. And you can make a favorable trade there, but also it can like just kill Iago as well. So it's a pretty versatile card. I did think that there was a couple times over the weekend where it actually was like a really great card in certain positions, and it probably was like a defining moment of those games. We have 4 copies of Sail, 3 Finders Keepers. I was running 2 and 2 second stars on the first day of set champs, but I went down to 1 and 3 just because the uninkable, when you don't have an ability to play it, really hurts, and that did happen to me in the end. 4 copies of Into the Unknown. This is, you know, another excellent removal card, and it works really well with Ursula, works well with magical maneuvers, Elsa. You have lots of different ways to force your opponent into exerting, or if they're already exerted, then you can just like hard cast it or have a character sing it and get a lot of value that way. Second star is a good card, really great when you get to sing it and you get 5 cards and it doesn't cost you very much tempo, so it's kind of a, you know, high risk, high reward. I think that it is necessary. It's really powerful in the mirror. Whoever gets to play second star first generally does win the matchup, I think, is pretty much the consensus with the Blurple mirror. Do you want to have a second star in there? 2 maybe, but 2 was a little bit risky for me, so I've stuck with 1, and I think that 1 is a good choice. So that's the list. So now that we've looked at the deck, let's go ahead and talk about the matchup that I had. So on Saturday, I played in a set champs at the deck box. There were 19 players, so it was a 5-round tournament with a cut to top 8. In round 1, I was very fortunate because there was an odd number of players. I got the bye. I pretty much never get the bye in a tournament ever, so I was kind of happy with it because I got to look around the room and scout out the other decks. But it is a little bit boring because I'd rather, in general, just play. In round 2, I played against Amber, Sapphire. It was like a princess deck, so it was much more aggro oriented, and as a slow control deck, it can be hard to keep up with those. I lost the first game and very nearly lost the second game, so it was a tough matchup, but I did win 2-1. In round 3, I played against Ruby Amethyst. It was a power line deck, similar to a deck that I watched on stream at one of the big tournaments. It made, I think, top 8, and then it lost to Amber Steel aggro. But in this matchup, I was able to win 2-0. I was on the play and it went fairly well. I was able to remove enough of their threats that they didn't really get any big power line value, which was nice. And then I hit my second star and had lots of cards available to deal with the things that they played. In round 4, I played against an Emerald Steel deck. This was like the max goof list. This is, I think, the set champs Lorcana deck list, basically, where they use the 6 cost goof and then they just kind of like get tempo. It's kind of a mid-rangey deck that gets a lot of value, and I was able to win 2-1. It was a tough matchup, definitely didn't feel free or that I would say was heavily favored, but I did get the win. So at this point I was 4-0. So going into the 5th round, there was one other 4-0 player, so they were also on Blurple, so we did intentionally draw, which guaranteed us 1st and 2nd seed going into the top cut. So at top cut I got 2nd seed, and at top 8 I played against the Emerald Steel max deck, the same one from round 4 of the tournament, and I lost. So I won game 1, I lost game 2, so it was both players who were on the play won. And then in game 3 I drew some really unfortunate cards. I got stuck with only uninkables and I couldn't play them. I didn't have enough ink, and I just kind of like dawdled for too long, and they played Doc, and then Mother Knows Best replayed Doc until they just had like a really wide board, and Blurple is not good at answering a wide board, so they were able to just like outplay and outvalue me in that matchup. My opponent played it really well, so I can't really say too much, you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. When your deck just doesn't work, then you end up losing. Sucks that it would happen at game 3 of a top 8, but you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbled. So I was out of the tournament at that point, but The eventual winner of the tournament was a different green steel deck. It was a green steel aggro Chromicon deck played by somebody named Tourney, who's a local player in my area, and he played it really well. He was able to get all the way to the finals and take it home using the aggro Chromicon build. This is the top 4 deck that we saw from Bologna, and he played the same list card for card and was able to win this big set champs with it. So way to go for him, really well played, and shows you that the meta is a little bit more diverse than we originally expected, I think, and that, you know, a lot of decks don't run any type of item removal, and the Chromicon is extremely powerful. So congrats to everybody who played, made top 8. I did get a promo Maleficent Dragon at least for making top 8, and the card looks really awesome. So let's take a look at the winning deck list. If you haven't seen it already, this is a copy of the list. Now let's talk about our second set championship that I ran on Sunday. On Sunday, I played in a tournament at Got Item Games. It was a 15-player set championship, so it was only 4 rounds with a cut to top 4. I like both formats, the 5-round top 8 and the 4-round top 4. A big tournament feels a lot of fun to play in, but there is something to be said about a much shorter day. The extra rounds and the extra round of top cut can really extend, you know, to a really long day, but it is fun either way. So in this set champs, I played Blurple again, basically wanted to run it back. Since I made top cut and bricked, I wanted to see if I could get all the way with the same deck. In round 1, I played against Amber Steel. I did win 2-0. It wasn't a fully tuned like aggro list, so I was able to get there. In round 2, I played against Amethyst Steel. I won this 2-0. I think that Amethyst Steel is pretty favored for Blurple. They're kind of mid-rangey. They're not fast enough sometimes to get under you unless they're built to go fast, and this deck definitely had more mid-range tools, so I was able to take that down 2-0. In round 3, I played against a Blurple deck. So the mirror is, you know, not ideal, requires, you know, more thinking, and is a bit more like luck dependent because you could draw better than your opponent or they draw better than you. But I was able to win 2-0. I tend to play the matchup more aggressively and just try and like flood the board and go quest, and I was able to get there. So I was at 3-0 going into round 4. There was only one other player and they were also 3-0. They're on Blurple, so I didn't want to play the mirror again, so I did offer to ID. We agreed, and I went into the top 4 with first seed in this tournament. At top 4, I played Blurple. It was the same opponent from round 3, and I was able to win 2-0 again. And in the final, I played another Blurple mirror, and this was against the opponent that I ID'd with in round 4. So I ended up playing them anyway. But basically, I played in a 6-round tournament, and 4 rounds were against Blurple, and I was able to win pretty consistently, which is good. It was you know, not exactly what you hope for when you play in a tournament, to just play in mirrors all day, but I think that understanding that Blurple is the most popular deck, it is the strongest deck, and the deck you're most likely to see, it is definitely something that you want to get accustomed to. Playing in the mirror, thinking through the lines, thinking through your opponent's lines, and trying to preserve your resources. I think that a big part of these matchups is your card draw. So prioritizing keeping your card draw options, making sure you play them at a time where you're able to build resources without costing yourself too much tempo. And definitely the second star was huge in at least 2 of the matchups. In 3 or 4 of the games, I was able to hit second star, and my opponents didn't play second star against me. And that card is just like so busted when you have 2 singers and you draw the 5 cards, and now you can suddenly start flooding the board and you have more resources than your opponent, and they just can't catch back up after that. And Finders Keepers is also pretty good at getting you lots of cards, especially once you have enough ink to play that and some other stuff. But I think that the Dumbo, not as important in these matchups as the second star, the Finders, getting your turn 3 Genie into turn 4 Elsa. Those combos that have always been really important are still just as important, if not more important. And I think that comes down to the same fundamentals that the mirror has always come down to. And I don't think that like having Dumbo or not having Dumbo really plays a big factor in that. Obviously, he's like a removal bait because your opponent doesn't want you to draw a lot of cards, but he doesn't like break the game open or anything as much as just like having a wide board and keeping your hand and healthy. So I was able to get first place. I was really pumped because I really liked the playmat, and I always, set high expectations that I want to grind and get the playmat. And now that I have it, I can play other decks. I don't want to play Blurple all the time. In fact, I wasn't playing it at all this set, but I was able to get there, and now I can probably move on to like blue-green or some of the other more fun decks. The next list I want to talk about is the Green Steel Max list. So this is something that kind of popped up after the EU content creator set champs, but it runs Clarabelle, so it runs the 4 1-drops, 4 3-cost, and then big Clarabelle for the ship. Captain Hook as another threat for the early game. 3 copies of Go-Go to gain that lore burst, 4 copies of Ursula, and 4 copies of Calhoun. We have Doc. We have 4 copies of Max Goof, who lets us recycle our songs, so our Mother Knows Best and our Strength of Raging Fires can be replayed. Some lists run Heffalumps and Woozles as another card that can be sung and then bounced around. That way you get a card draw, but I think that some lists have kind of moved away from that, and some are also like running Chromicon now. We have 4 copies of the Genie Dragon, 4 copies of Pete, and then we have our shift to the Big Max Goof. And this deck has for actions Improvise, which is really good at boosting up strength, gives you a card draw, but it can pop illusions. And then we have our Mother Knows Best in strength, and now I see that some lists have started running You're Welcome because it gives you more Clarabelle value, slows your opponent down, gives you more options for removal, and this card can be replayed with the Big Max Goof, so you get extra value. If you haven't played around with this deck, it is pretty versatile. It's not always just about dealing with your opponent's characters, but sometimes you can just outvalue them by like bouncing your Doc over and over again with Mother Knows Best and Max Goof to keep recycling the song. You send Doc back to hand, you play Doc, draw 2, and you just like build a really wide board. And if your opponent doesn't have a way to punish that, then you can just kind of win the game. And it's a deck that has, I think, more patience required than a lot of decks. The game plan's not always straightforward, so there is like a very high skill ceiling, and this deck did knock me out of my set champs on Saturday. Not quite this exact list, but very similar. And I will say that give it some respect because it is a pretty challenging deck to play against in the right hands. So those are the deck lists. They're not every deck that you could see. Obviously, I skipped some like Steel and Amber Steel, which you're inevitably going to see in your set champs. I want to highlight a few decks that I saw a lot over the weekend and think have some potential. I think that you're obviously going to see Blurple and Amber Steel the most probably, but there's lots of fun in those other decks that all have kind of rock, paper, scissors matchups with those. So I'm excited to see what happens this weekend, and I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what decks you're playing, how it went, how your set champs have been so far. Thanks for watching the video. Cheers.